This is the last city built by the Soviet Union. And it was a city that was built in a flash. So I'm kind of excited right now. I am in a place that I've wanted to come to for a very, very long time. This is the city of Slavutych, not far from Chernobyl, up near the Belarusian border. And this is a bit of an urbanist's dream destination in a kind of a weird, dorky way. This is the last city built by the Soviet Union. And it was a city that was built in a flash. 50 kilometers from here is Chernobyl. Quick summary: April 1986, one of the nuclear reactors at Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. Chaos and panic ensued, of course. I remember it very, very well, man. We were so scared where this cloud of nuclear radiation was gonna drift. Were there going to be more explosions? Oh, it was a tense time, I can tell you. I was far away from here, but the people who lived in this area, man, it must have been off the charts. Fear about this situation. In the days after the explosion, there was absolute confusion, and they finally decided to evacuate all the people in the town of Pripyet, where all the people who ran the nuclear power plant lived together with their families, also a very typical Soviet town. And they said, right, everybody, we got to get out. Buses were sent from all over the Ukraine, all over Soviet Union in order to evacuate 45,000 people. 8,000 of them were children, and they just got them the hell out in a hurry. But they said, don't worry, just pack for 2 or 3 days, you'll be coming back in no time. So they all just left with a few bags, some clothes, some basic necessities. They never went back. The radiation was too intense. The town of Pripyet is a ghost town now. In the middle of 1986, they started saying, right, we need a place for all the people who run the nuclear power plant to live. In October 1986, they announced the plans to create a new city. That is where I'm standing now. First of all, they needed a location out of the really contaminated zone, but it had to be close enough for people to commute to the nuclear power plant because 3 of the reactors were still functioning. So they looked on a map, I guess, and found a spot in really the middle of nowhere, here in the pine forests of northern Ukraine. And they said, yeah, this is handy because they have water, it's close to the river, and it also had a rail network. There was just a lonely country station in the middle of the woods, and they said, here, we're gonna build a new city, the last city. Well, they didn't say that, right? They didn't know it was gonna be the last city the Soviet Union ever built. It's kind of funny to think about, isn't it? But let's put the city right there. Scale up the railway, which is easier than making a new one, cleared a whole bunch of trees, and then they put down 2 meters of non-contaminated soil, like 2 meters. Over the entire plot of land, just in case. That's an amazing amount of earth that they put right on this location, and which formed the foundation for the coming city. Train stations bigger today. At its peak, maybe 9,000, 10,000 people a day would be heading about 50 kilometers through what is now Belarus to go to work at the nuclear facility. Only 3,000 people commute to Chernobyl because the reactors have been turned off in 2001. A little bit empty today. Walking around the city, you can see the train station. 4 platforms, but not a lot of trains running through here at the moment. This is where it all started. So the funny story I heard was that in the early days of the war, the Russians came bumbling down the road here with their maps heading into Ukraine. And then they got to this intersection here, coming this way, and they stopped and they said, there's a road here, but there's no road on the map. They had no idea where this road went because they were using maps from 1985, and Slavutych was built in 1986, the hapless Russian army. So hilarious, man, using 1985 maps to invade a country. Ooh. The Soviets were pretty good at building cities. They had a kind of a cookie cutter approach. They had a real focus on community. You lived in apartment blocks or in homes around public space, schools, supermarkets, and then you went off to work somewhere else. Now, this is not a big town, so everything really that you need is really close to where we are standing right now. We're in the town square. Huge main square, loving that. Then you go down here, and just over there, there's a football stadium and a running track around it with a playground next to it. Lots of green space as well. Here is I'm kind of getting the vibe of the town center. There's some shops and some supermarkets there. City Park, right? Everything is surrounding the square. Super compact city, everything is exactly where you needed to be in a short walking distance. And of course, probably the city hall of Slavutych right there. A wild guess I'm taking there, but of course that's what that is. But they were in a massive hurry. The people, the families, they needed a place to stay pretty damn quick. And so something really quite extraordinary in the Soviet context happened. Normally the Soviets would come in and say, we know how to make a city, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it like that, we've been doing that for ages, but there was simply no time for that. So they had all of these different countries around the former Soviet Union who volunteered their help to help build this town of Slavutych. So all of the neighborhoods in this town were built by different regions of the USSR, and they're all countries in their own right today. And all of the different neighborhoods have a really unique and special individual architectural style. The Yerevan neighborhood, and they used, as I understand it, Armenian stone. The color of the stones is very typical to that country, so they put their little flavor on the buildings there. And then you turn around and they look across the park at the Baku neighborhood, and they have a lot of their own architectural flavor from Azerbaijan. You can see the shapes of the windows are very typical of Azerbaijani architecture. Up at the top you have some stonework, you have the colored painting to give it also another kind of a flavor. Pretty cool. All the different neighborhoods look completely different. This is something that the Soviets really didn't know how to handle, but they just needed a city built in a flash. So it ended up like that. And it's really a fun puzzle to figure out which neighborhood you're in based on the architectural styles. Oh, this is Tallinn. Ah, this is Riga. Oh, there's Yerevan. All the different architectural styles of the 8 different countries that helped build Slavutych are easily recognizable. You kind of know when you walk into another neighborhood. So I've been walking around for a couple of hours and I think I've seen the whole place. It's not big at all. The footprint of this city is very small, but it is very densely populated. Life in a war zone. Now I've been in Ukraine for more than 3 months since the start of the full invasion in many cities around the country, and nobody's running, you know. Everybody's just going about their daily business now here in March. Actually, it's April 2023. So the vibe is totally different than it was last year. Back to Slavutych, incredibly Soviet city. The last city the Soviets built, and by default, the youngest city in Ukraine. Both in the actual age of the city, but also the demographics. This is one of the youngest cities in the whole country. I really like this place. It's a really cool vibe. Very few cars, lots of pedestrians, kids playing. But the Soviet planning of this city, even though so many different cities and countries were involved, is still incredibly Soviet. Densely populated neighborhoods with a playground in the middle, with a school. Almost every of these neighborhoods has its own sports facility. It's really been odd walking around here, especially here in the town center. It kind of has a Truman Show vibe, you know? If you've ever been to Seaside, Florida, the pride and joy of the American new urbanism movement, a little town they made there, which featured in the Truman Show. It was actually the set of the Truman Show. It kind of has the same thing. It's like all of these, these Soviet buildings, you got apartment blocks, you got some people walking around. It looks like they're extras in some Tarkovsky film that never made it to the cinemas. But it's good. Like, I got an awesome vibe here. I really love it, and I've been looking forward to coming for years and years. Man, it's cool. I cannot imagine the mammoth task of having to evacuate 45,000 people, getting buses from all over the Ukraine and the Soviet Union at the time, and just getting these people out. 8,000 of them were children in the crazy days after the explosion. Because of the number of children, they decided to have a very child-friendly focus when planning this city. Each of the neighborhoods did their own thing. The other parts of the Soviet Union that donated time and money and workers to build this city all had the same focus, that children should be at the forefront because of the things they had experienced in Pripyet. Oh my God, there's a bike. Okay. So one of the many fun facts about Slavutych is that when it was finally finished in 1988 and all the neighborhoods were completed and people started to move in, they had actually made bike lanes. 1988, Soviet Union, they thought, let's do bike lanes. It's got to be like the only place in the Soviet Union at that time that had bike lanes. And it continues down here. I've seen them all up and down the streets. Bike lanes, man. And look how few cities in Eastern Europe, post-Soviet countries, have bike lanes now. They're still fighting for them. And here the people of Slavutych were like, oh yeah, boom, bring the bike, 1988. That's so cool, man. 80% of all the housing in this town, it's quite the same as it was when it was built. 80% is apartment blocks and 20% is single dwelling units. That really is a lot of social housing for the academics who lived here. And really, this is one of the most highly educated populations of any city in Ukraine because they're all deeply connected with the nuclear power plant, or at least they were. Which brings us to kind of the existential dilemma for Slavutych. Up until 2001, 9,000 people a day would take the train to work or maybe drive at the Chernobyl power plant because 3 of the reactors were still running. But then the decision was made to close the entire facility. That put a lot of people out of work. The Ukrainian government has retrained many people because there's not really any jobs here. All the jobs were 50 kilometers away at the nuclear power plant, which was their raison d'etre for living here. Now, 3,000 people a day make the journey to Chernobyl because they still need to take care of the place, make sure it doesn't explode again, and do all the things you need to do with a disused nuclear power plant facility. The population of this city before the full invasion last year in 2022 was about 24,000 people. But the existential dilemma is, what do the people here do now? It's kind of in a weird zone. Does this place just slip away into the sands of time, or will there be some effort to revive it and make it a destination, a place with jobs, a place with a future for families to come and live here? We simply don't know the answer to this question just yet. I'm sure it was a lot more lively back in the day, you know, on a work day, people coming home from work, going to the supermarket, kids coming home from school. I want to say that it's a kind of a ghost town feel, but man, there are people everywhere. Like, I can see like people all around me in the distance doing things that you do in cities. So I don't want to disrespect the place by calling it a ghost town, but it really is a place on the cusp of change. There is nowhere in the world like Slavutych. I doubt that there ever will be ever again. It's a quiet, walkable city and very few cars. Sure, we're in the middle of a war here. A lot of people have left Ukraine to go to the West, but you know, you just kind of want this place to keep on keeping on. A place as unique and special as this, for its architectural, historical value, its role in the history of this region, its role in the history of the Chernobyl tragedy. There's so many reasons this place is just really cool, and I really hope that it figures out how to thrive once again.